Delaware County's only live television newscast from Ball State University's Unified Media Newsroom. You're watching NewsLink Indiana Midday.
Welcome to NewsLink Indiana Midday. I'm Aaliyah Smith.
And I'm Alana Gaither. Donald Trump promised an end to the war in Ukraine on day one in the White House. 92 days later comes a proposed peace plan, which officials have described as his final offer.
Amid threats, the U.S. will walk away from peace negotiations if the deal is rejected. CNN's Nick Robertson has more.
So the meeting in London scaled down. Secretary of State Marco Rubio unable to attend for logistical issues. Just a few days ago in Paris, Friday, he was the one saying that the Europeans, the Ukrainians really needed to move on. They'd communicated to them, communicated to the Russians what a broad plan would be, and that they should move on. That was echoed again today by the Vice President J.D. Vance, saying it was time for all parties to make decisions.
We've issued a very explicit proposal to both the Russians and the Ukrainians, and it's time for them to either say yes or for the United States to walk away from this process. We've engaged in an extraordinary amount of diplomacy, of on-the-ground work.
So in that context of a demand for speed, surprising that Secretary Rubio didn't come to London. The meeting's downgraded to officials level. The Foreign Minister and Defense Minister of Ukraine did come to London, met with their counterparts here. And interesting to hear the analysis of the British Defense Secretary about President Putin's so-called 30-hour truce over the Easter weekend. He said that the British intelligence services didn't believe Putin had adhered to that truce. In fact, went on to say that it is Putin who is playing for time, dragging his heels here.
So while Putin has said he declared an Easter truce, he broke it. While Putin says he wants peace, he's rejected a full ceasefire. And while Putin says he wants to put an end to the fighting, he continues to play for time in the negotiations.
President Trump today again doubled down on Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, saying that he has no cards and he needs to get on with this deal now. That what he's talking about, what Zelensky is talking about Crimea and not accepting what the United States seems to be ready to accept, that Russia should keep control of Crimea. Zelensky says that's a red line. Trump saying very clearly it is Zelensky that needs to get on and sign the deal. Nick Robertson, CNN, London.
Ukraine has been hit by another night of deadly Russian strikes. Despite U.S. President Donald Trump's plea for Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop attacking its neighbor, at least 8 people were killed in drone strikes across the country, a night after Russia launched its deadliest bombardment of Ukraine since the middle of last year. The fresh round of attacks come after President Trump vented his frustration over the lack of progress on a peace deal on Thursday, saying he is, quote, not happy and urging Putin to stop the attacks. Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, visits Moscow for further talks with Putin on reaching an agreement.
President Donald Trump is almost single-handedly moving stock markets around the world with tariff policies, experts say. He also might be moving the U.S. and global economies towards slowdowns. Trump claims he has the right to impose tariffs unilaterally when fentanyl and border security are involved. He also argues trade deficits are a threat to national security. Amy Kiley reports on a new lawsuit challenging that assertion.
The president has absolutely no legal authority to issue these tariffs.
A group of 12 states is suing the Trump administration over the president's use of tariffs. It's taking the matter to the U.S. Court of International Trade. President Donald Trump claims he can impose tariffs single-handedly due to the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It gives the president authority to respond to unusual and extraordinary threats.
We started with the fentanyl border tariffs. The IEPA is also used for the trade deficit.
The lawsuit argues that's an overreach. It notes the Constitution gives Congress the power to collect taxes and duties. U.S. businesses have to pay applicable tariffs on imports. Experts say they often pass on some or all of that expense to consumers in the form of higher prices.
Arizona cannot afford this Trump tax increase. And make no mistake, no matter what Orwellian doublespeak the White House uses, tariffs are taxes.
The lawsuit comes as Trump is warning negotiations during his 90-day pause on so-called reciprocal tariffs might not last 90 days in some cases. He says he might have some rates settled in 2 or 3 weeks.
We're going to have great deals. And by the way, if we don't have a deal with a company or a country, we're going to set the tariff.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
The U.S. could face millions of measles cases if state vaccination rates decline even more. That's according to a new Stanford-led study in the journal JAMA. It estimates the rates range from about 88% to 96%. That's below pre-pandemic levels. Misinformation about the vaccine is spreading in the U.S., and so is the disease itself. The CDC reports 800 cases this year, with a hospitalization rate of 11%. As Amy Kiley has more.
This is an extremely contagious disease.
A new study shows measles could become endemic in the U.S. if vaccination rates don't improve. That means it'd be present constantly, despite its declared elimination in 2000. Over a 25-year period, the researchers project almost 900,000 measles cases if rates stay the same. They forecast about 11 million if vaccinations decline 10%, and more than 51 million if they drop by half.
Everybody go get the measles vaccine right now.
The measles shots most people get as children are proven to be highly effective.
I believe in the MMR shot.
But U.S. vaccination rates are down since the COVID-19 pandemic. The CDC reports outbreaks in West Texas and surrounding states, with some cases in other areas.
There are complications including pneumonia, including seizures, including permanent disability, and of course, death.
A group of public health experts is trying to raise awareness with the Vaccine Integrity Project. They say it's a response to mixed messages from Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
People get measles because they don't vaccinate. They get measles because the vaccine wanes.
The CDC considers the modern vaccine lifelong protection against the measles. Here's the FDA commissioner on whether parents should get it for their children.
Any child who dies from a vaccine-preventable disease is a tragedy.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Let's take a look at today's NewsLink Indiana weather. These are the conditions right now. It's 69 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Showers are possible this afternoon with a high around 70. Things will cool down before warming back up in the 7th-day forecast. Highs will drop to the 60s this weekend before rising around 80 early next week.
Former President Joe Biden and former First Lady Jill Biden are planning to attend Pope Francis' funeral on Saturday. They are among many world leaders headed to the Vatican City to pay their respects. Biden, who was the second Roman Catholic to serve as U.S. president, met Pope Francis on several occasions over the years. In January, Biden awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom with distinction, the nation's highest honor. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will also attend the funeral.
On Saturday, a funeral mass will be held for Pope Francis in St. Peter's Square. This comes after more than 90,000 people have paid their respects to late Pope Francis, the Vatican says. People around the world are mourning this loss, even more at home. NewsLink Indiana's Emma Matlock spoke with students to get their perspective on the passing of Pope Francis.
Very surprised.
Surprise and shock are just two of the words that have been used to describe students' reaction to the passing of Pope Francis.
Saw at least 8 different text conversations. Hey, did you hear about Pope Francis? Then I immediately opened my news app and I saw on almost every single news story died at the age of 88.
Sophomore Seth Shifley says one of Pope Francis's last acts, giving Vice President J.D. Vance's children Easter baskets, perfectly describes his papacy.
And so when he met with Vice President J.D. Vance, he didn't see the vice president. He didn't see a Christian. He saw a man who has 3 children at home who are celebrating Easter without him, and he wanted those 3 children to be happy. And that's really what he stood for, kindness and compassion.
On Wednesday, Muncie Catholics gathered to hold a prayer in honor of the late Pope.
I think Catholics, they take the state of the church very personally. And at least people who I know were very sad about what happened.
The Catholic Church has to elect the Pope's successor. After a period of mourning, the cardinals will vote for who will be the next Pope. The choice must receive 2/3 of the vote from cardinals who are under 80 years old and are eligible to vote in the conclave. Manziera believes that the Pope left a legacy of humility.
So very humble and very kind and compassionate.
In Muncie, Emma Matlock, NewsLink, Indiana.
Ever wonder what local companies do not just for you, but also the environment? The Muncie Wastewater Treatment Plant is doing just that. NewsLink Indiana's Stephanie Weaver has the story.
Many types of fish, freshwater mussels, and other types of life rely on clean water to live and thrive in. The Muncie Wastewater Plant not only focuses on filtering clean water, but also tends to the wildlife affected by it.
I think the work that we're doing here at the Bureau of Water Quality in an effort to monitor the biological community, it gives us sort of a sense of giving back because the river was so historically polluted that being able to monitor these species and being able to tell that their numbers are increasing as the water quality improves is the #1 objective.
From increasing the mussel population to daily water testing, biodiversity is thriving even more because of this community of workers. The significant increase of species, both land and water, has majorly increased thanks to not only the water quality, but also the removal and modifying of dams on the White River.
We have 65 plus species of fish now. We have eagles nesting on the river. We have blue heron rookery on the river. So biodiversity is really increasing from what it used to be.
The many jobs, programs, and educational trips each play a role in bringing recognition to the importance of not only what they do, but also the effect on our planet. The Muncie Wastewater Plant's impact on biodiversity does not go unnoticed. In Muncie, Stephanie Weaver, NewsLink, Indiana.
Want to know more about what the Bureau of Water Quality does in Muncie? Check out their website for more information.
And that's your NewsLink webcast for today. Thanks for joining us.
And be sure to join us tonight at 6:57 on Ball State PBS. And for news anytime, anywhere, go to ballstatedaily.com.